Alright, so I vented a couple frustrations in some of the previous videos. I would like to share with you something that I really love in art. And not just art, but also in real life. You're probably familiar with the concept of breaking the fourth wall. If not, I'll just briefly explain. The fourth wall, breaking it, comes from with a term from theater plays in which the actors in a theater play they they never actively look at the audience as if the audience is visible, and that so the wall that is between the audience and the actors, it is treated as if that no one ever like gives you eye contact. Then this is also a technique that they employ in film. If you are looking directly at the camera head on, it's more of just like a zeroed in shot. The actor is not supposed to act like it is aware there is a camera, and this can even go translate into other mediums like comic books as well. However, there are fourth wall breaks in which when the actor is directly communicating with the audience, breaking that fourth wall, sort of like a rule that they're breaking. So I believe there are very skilled fourth wall breaks, and then there are ones that are very petty. For example, if I don't really like the sort of winking at the camera fourth wall breaks for the sake of humor, especially if it's like toilet humor. A friend of mine was telling me how that's been going on with some of the Marvel or comic book movies. Not all of them, but some of them. Like I saw a lot of that kind of wink at the camera stuff with Guardians of the Galaxy. So like what? Why don't I like that? Because it might shatter the illusion of the world that it's trying to create, for the sake of something that may not be so worth it. You're kind of it's drawing awareness to the audience, but its payoff is not so great, and it's okay if other people like it. I'm fine with that, but I don't particularly care for it. What would be a skillful fourth wall break? So something very deep and dear to me is when the illusionist, the creator of this, maybe a film, is sort of telling you exactly how they really feel through a character. And it seems that they're directly talking to you personally, like a synchronicity. But they also are doing it for a reason within the context of the illusion of the world without shattering it. So they're breaking through the fourth wall that is the medium that they're using, whether it's a movie or a comic book, or a play. I'm sure there's other things out there. So they're breaking the conventions of the structure that their art is contained in, but then they're also breaking through to the soul itself. That to me is a very skilled fourth wall break, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I do think whenever you have these synchronicities with art and it just speaks to your soul, that's what's actually happening. So this isn't just in art. This is something that extends to everyday conversations. Like you have a conversation with someone, you have a synchronicity, and it's as if God or the creator is speaking to you, or maybe something else, maybe your soul is speaking to you to be like, yes, that I want to go deeper with that. And so I'll expound a little bit on synchronicities. What I've noticed with synchronicities, and I've traced, is that you are always bringing your energy with you. It's not a coincidence. What Carl Jung termed meaningful coincidences is a good term, but generally, if you really pay attention to the things that you're saying and doing throughout the day, you'll notice that you aren't having different conversations one after the other with different people. You're bringing the energy from the last conversation with you to the next one. Someone else senses it. Even if you aren't using the exact same words, you might be using words that lead up to it anyway. And you're always looking to expound upon your last conversation. Or if you have a question in your mind, or if you're just excited to see where it goes. It doesn't always have to be about solving problems, right? if that's the energy that you're embodying, the universe will respond. And it doesn't always respond that way, mind you. We are always bringing with us also sort of projections from others or problems, energies with us on top of this synchronicity energy. So that's all being mixed together. But then there's also other people with their own intentions, and they might have ignorance to your intentions. So we got a weird kind of mixture of things happening. But anyway, I touched on this in the last video, and the thing that excites to me the most is a convergence of mediums of art, where we don't just do something that's a film, maybe we do something that's a film and a musical experience and maybe even a comic book, because the message is the medium. Jonathan Blow had a good talk about the message is the medium, in which he explains that commercials in television influenced the medium itself because they had to worry about whether they would capture the audience's attention enough, leaving things on a cliffhanger in order to retain their audience so that they'll stay through 5 minutes of commercials. But not only that, like he used the example of like the Starship Enterprise. You know that no matter how many times the Starship Enterprise and Star Trek, say the Next Generation, the ship is never going to be destroyed, because then there's no story. And he was explaining how that influenced the medium and why drama is very different with television as a result of that. So mix it, but this is also true of synchronicities. The negative repercussions of a medium and what it might hold also lends to the types of synchronicities you can have with someone. So if you're listening to music, you're going to have synchronicities that have to do with feelings and vibes, right? It's not going to be as visual with your actual eyes. You might get visual pictures in you as you listen, but it's just a different type of synchronicity. And one of the things I've noticed that's really fascinating, and this is where it gets really exciting, if you're trying to navigate a character's special abilities, which, you know, one might be a photographer, right? So because they're a photographer, you're probably going to do best off telling the story through either photographs or a comic book or a film, right? Because it has directly a correlation with the special ability of someone being able to see differently. I thought there's a movie called Fur that's interesting. It's an imaginary portrait of Dion Arbus's life. It says that in the title, so it's not reality. It's intentionally a fiction. They do. I mentioned Dion Arbus in the last video. That's why I'm kind of talking about it here. That film does weird things with perspective because that is the subject material. They have like a weird, like you'll notice just weird details and like what some people would call autistic sort of, I'm not saying it is or isn't autistic, but what some people might mislabel autistic fascination, you know, a simple fascination of the obscure, right? That happens in that film, and that's a really good example of what I'm talking about. So if you were to mix these mediums together, your synchronicities and the eccentricities that are sort of being explored through the character or even the creator of this story, that's going to have a different effect on you if you mix these mediums together. That really, truly excites me to make art like that. It's kind of like a convergence of a lot of multifaceted information together. Now, it's not easy to do this, mind you. Something I've said about Broadway musicals is I don't particularly like them. I tend not to. I want to. But it's very difficult to tell a story that is deep, meaningful, has foreshadowing. It knows exactly what the kind of themes it's trying to tell. The ending is actually a good execution of those themes and sort of these fourth wall breaks. But it's also difficult enough to make music by itself. So when you try to merge these things together, it's much more complicated to get both like finely crafted, right? But anyway, I thought I'd share you this stuff because it's exciting to me, the prospects of doing something unusual like that. It's something that speaks to my soul whenever I feel that and I get those sensations from other artistic mediums. And I might, next video, I might talk about the Anima Mundi, which is Latin for soul of the world. It has a lot to do with sort of paying attention to the eccentricities of the world. But I'll leave that on the cliffhanger. I won't keep explaining that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video about breaking the fourth wall, or breaking the walls of the soul. And yeah, I hope that you see more of these things and you enjoy more of these things and get excited about them as a result of watching this video. Maybe you wonder about them a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of wondering to be had for all of us. Well, have a lovely day and enjoy.